he's explaining to her how to do the one thing that everybody who produces needs to do, which is, right? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. 90+% of all small farmers around the world are invisible to markets. So what do they need? They need to be able to raise their hand. They need to be able to be seen by large supply chains, by the cooperatives that they work with, by the governments that want to serve them. They need to be seen. So one of the things that we started off with was, what is the most important thing for the farmer? And the most important thing for the farmer is to be seen. The most important thing for the farmer is to make sure that all of their goods get sold, right? That's the most important thing for their family. That's the most important thing for their willingness to invest in the future. That's the most important thing for food security. And so there you have Wilbert, who is sitting and talking with a woman who has onions to sell, and she's connecting to people who want to buy her onions. So we looked at this and we said, okay, what's the simplest possible thing that we can do to really solve this problem at scale? Because you're not going to solve the problem of small agriculture unless you solve it at scale, right? So we developed a simple, we looked at the companies that had really gotten to scale and really done big work. Think about them: Google, Uber. They're places, they're companies that have a very simple entry point, a very simple and very obvious reason why you would go to see them. And then once you get there, a small number of steps till you get the payoff that you're looking for. And what we did is we developed a very simple tool. 3 pieces: an application that helps buyers and sellers match so that sellers can post their goods for sale and buyers can see what's available. Messaging on the app that does 2 things. It allows you to say, I'm looking for a particular kind of good, but also that you can push out some of those best practices. So when we're talking about sustainable agriculture, we're talking about regenerative agriculture, we're talking about improving agricultural practices, you can reinforce the messages that your ag extension agents are giving you. You can reinforce the messages that your supply chain, your buyer, your cooperative are giving you over and over again. So you get those messages, so you can integrate that into the way that you do your business. And then the last thing is analytics. Analytics for anyone who wants to be able to see at scale what's going on. A large co-op like our partners Taha here in Tanzania, or like our partners Guinness in Ghana, who want to be able to see what's being produced and when it's going to be available. The key thing is to match all of these things up, giving the farmer the ability to take the very first action. Because when it comes down to it, who is the most interested party, right? It's the farmer themselves. They've got the goods that are going bad. They've got the goods that have value today. 30+% of the crops that are pulled out of the ground with the hard labor of men and women in Tanzania never make it to market, right? You want to sell everything. You want to sell it at a good price. That means you got to connect as quickly as you can. So we were talking about the ability to do real time. We have it set up to do real-time data: location, requested pricing, demographics, and current or future quantity. You can put up what you have for sale now or what you will have for sale. And that's an actual map of where we have goods that are posted on the platform. The green ones are sellers, are buyers, sellers, and the orange ones are buyers, I believe. We get a clear view of what Tanzanian farmers look like. So if you want to have, you want to know who are the people who are producing, what are their ages, what are their genders, where are they physically in the country, we can know, and we update what we do every time a person posts goods for sale. The key thing is visibility, and in just 1 year, with just one person on the ground, we've been able to put up over 1,000 farmers, 8,000 metric tons, closing in on $8 million worth of goods. Importantly, we've also created a program where 40+% of all the people are self-trained. Think about who taught you how to use Google. My guess is probably no one, right? You learned it from your friends, you learned it by trying, you learned it by doing. We wanted a platform that was as simple as that, so that people who are in their different areas of the country, in their different villages, can do it themselves. And we've been participants not just in domestic trade, but also in export. In exports, we had one very big deal with a cooperative called Nchina, based out in Njombe, which ended up helping them get a $670,000 export deal. We're also working in Ghana, and I wanted to just reference that really quickly, because it's possible to work both with cooperatives, and it's also possible to work with big supply chains. They have 30,000 farmers. They work through 12 aggregators, and what's interesting is that you can set up an entire system in a very short period of time, and that the people get it. We just did a really interesting user survey with one of the major academic institutions, the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology up in Tamale. And 61% of the people surveyed said, yeah, we already think we've made more money as a result of using this just in the first harvest cycle. And 100% thought they were gonna make more money in the next year. This is a picture of a training that we did up in Tamale. So why is this important? Well, it's important to get farmers to market. From a policy perspective, it's also important because you need to be able to ask the hard questions, right? How do I track the impact of the programs that are targeted to young farmers? How do I have the ability to target female farmers? All of this allows us to optimize transport. It allows us to target programs. And last, a shout out to our many partners. These are the ones that we've been working with closely right now in Tanzania. Thanks so much to TAHA, to USDA, to USAID, and to Nshida, amongst many others. I look forward to answering any questions. Thanks a lot.
So thank you, Andrew. Great stuff, by the way. So really, and in that rapid growth in user base and the analytics is quite nice, nice to see. So let me welcome Dr. Racine Lee, Director, Data Management, Digital Products and Technology at Academia 2063, to deliver a presentation on a new platform called Africa Agriculture Watch, or AGWA, on leveraging remote sensing data in AI to develop crop production forecasts. Racine, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Osman, for the introduction. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to present the Africa Agriculture Watch, which is the fourth program at Academia 163, and it's leveraging satellite remote sensing data and artificial intelligence. For the sake of time, I will start quickly with a few sentences. Here you will see, I was in a podcast in a few weeks ago, and here we have Deborah Osemensa. She said that what I've been seeing on my farm is a bit less of productivity each year. This is due to drought and changes in weather pattern. It does not rain when it's supposed to rain, or if it rains, it's for about 2 weeks and the quantity is not enough. And I've not been to farm because you go there and instead of being happy, you're sad. And she's also saying that if we are able to keep up to date with what is happening, at least we will be able to protect most of our crops. That's what Deborah said. There's another farmer in the same podcast, Graham Rave. He's a maize farmer in Zambia. And he said we need prior predictions so that we can plan in the field on how to mitigate whether it's excess rain, whether it's too short rain, whether it's a normal rainy season. So what Deborah and Graham are saying is that there is a need for predictability in terms of taking the right action and hopefully to have the right outcome. So one way of, let's say, representing what Deborah and Graham has said is, for example, here, if you look at this model, systemic model of decision making, because at the end of the day, that's the kind of issue they are dealing with every day because of the erratic pattern in terms of rainfall. So they have input data, which defines the situation they have. They have judgment and training because they are seasoned farmers. But because we are facing in terms of intensity and frequency of due to climate change, so now predictions are hard for them, so therefore they might not take the best action and hopefully to have the right outcome. So here, what we are focusing on is to, for AGWA, is to enrich the type of data that we are dealing with to at least increase the assessment we do in terms of climate change impact on agriculture. and also to increase the prediction or the predictability aspects in terms of accuracy for them to add value to those predictions and therefore taking the best action. In terms of input data, we are focusing on satellite remote sensing data for several reasons. For example, with one satellite image, you can cover a large area, which will be a little bit difficult if you send enumerators on the ground, even though you need them for have ground truth data and for labeling or for validation. But also for each image, you have detailed information. These images, they come with layers that are telling us different stories about what is going on the ground. And finally, they have a high revisit time. So it means that we have the exact same image different times in a year, several times in a year. Just quickly, the first panel is a cropland area in Senegal, and then when we process it for the well-known normalized difference vegetation index, we can have a sort of proxy in terms of vegetation health. And here we applied a machine learning technique on a cropland area in Egypt, and now we start at least grouping those cross-by similarities, even though we don't know yet what they are, and that's what we are working on in terms of crop mapping. So when it comes now to when we enrich the data with satellite remote sensing data, how do we process it with AI? So here is a way of explaining it. There's a training phase. So what is going on is, for the first panel at the top, it's the beginning of the growing season, let's say in Tanzania. So we go to the satellite and start integrating it with data like vegetation index, land surface temperature, rainfall, evapotranspiration, soil nutrient contents. All of them are important for crop growth. And labels Y are our productions, our target parameter. So we feed those information to the model, and the model will take a first guess, and we compare that guess with the actual value. And the objective is to reduce that gap. Once we train the machine, now at the beginning of the season, we go and collect the data and feed them into the machine and ask the machine, based on what you've learned, what are the predictions about the production in that area. So if you are interested into the publication of the AFCP model, the Africa Crop Production Model, that is using several machine learning techniques and remote sensing data, please, I would like to invite you to scan the QR code. It's open and accessible. And then if we remain there, the model will remain among a few hands. Researchers publish, we have the paper, but no one will benefit it, in terms of decision making for the farmers or government or agencies. So we embed the model and the analytics in the platform that is called the Africa Agricultural Watch. No need for registration. You can just click on it and then have access to the data, download them, visualize the data, and those are published irregularly and in a near real time. And you also can have access to the accuracy assessment in the publication. What to expect with Agua, actually, in terms of products. You will have the community level forecast that I mentioned at the pixel level, which is different from having the administrative boundaries predictions. How do we increase the spatial resolution? That way we have a different story and have tailored intervention planning and also policy design. You will have also potential agricultural lands among other products that I mentioned. Just quickly, just 2 slides. Here you have an example of the map that we are producing. We have a visualization on the platform, so please, I will invite you to visit the platform. It's also accessible 24/7. And we also publish series for each country, each crop. Before we publish it, or at the same time, we publish also a brief or 2-pager where you have the facts and the data. That's the first publication you see there. We worked also on the Ukraine crisis, just to make sure that we know that wheat was important at that time and still, but do we know what to expect in Africa in terms of wheat production? And we did that assessment, for example, here in Morocco. We did the same in COVID-19, or we do scientific publications, and also for climate change, CASI, for risk and vulnerability mapping. What's just one piece? We are working also on mapping greenhouse gases emissions, tracking them. In particular, here you see methane above croplands in Senegal. That one will be added very soon on Agua. So my last slide. So our predictions are to, aim to inform decision making by taking it as an entry point first in the decision making process. Then we embed it within a tool, and therefore decision making can be made and strategy can be also put in place to hopefully have the right policy and tailored policy, which is important because they are impacted differently. We'll be very happy to answer questions, but also to collaborate on it. We will be here after this session. So thank you. Please subscribe to our newsletter to get the data and the latest publications. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Please stay on. I will encourage you to go and look at our website, and more importantly, those 9 crops that are being tracked at the beginning of every rainy season across Africa for 47 countries, they can tell you what to expect, right? In terms of harvest, couple of months ahead before we get there. Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Finance, the trader, the bank, the insurance company, all need to have that kind of information. So thank you, Racine and team. One of the biggest innovation in the agriculture area in Africa has been mutual accountability processes under the CAADP agenda, where heads of states, from heads of states all the way to researchers, people rally around specific outcomes. Justin was just talking about the BR and its outcome. These mutual accountability processes at the continental level is a biennial review, at the country level is a joint sector review processes, is to use data and evidence for peer review, for mutual learning and benchmarking, and to track what we do. So the next speaker, Babacar Cissé, is a senior manager in the Department of Senior Manager for Information Systems in the Department of Data Management, Digital Products and Technology at Academia 2063. He's been working facilitating the biennial review process through a digital platform. As you get data, the platform to use data, to disseminate data, and to access data become very important. So please welcome to give us a presentation on the CAADP Electronic Biennial Review platform and how we improve data quality and management through that. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Usman, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I will be talking about the CAADP Biennial Review, Electronic Biennial Review, EBR, and how it is improving the data quality and management of the BR data. Next slide. Yes. Okay. Right. So my presentation is structure in the, these following points. We have the understanding of the CAADP Electronic Biennial Review. I will talk about the core component of the EBR, and then how the EBR is improving data quality through the restriction. And then I will talk about how the EBR will ensure data security and privacy in the BR process. And also I will mention future development for the EBR. So this is to give a bit of the context. In the first biennial review in 2017, so, countries were manually reporting the data. So at that time, the report was created in Microsoft Word and submitted to regional economic communities, to the RECs. And the RECs had the responsibility to transfer those Word documents into Excel database. And that process, that manual process, posed several challenges, including the integration of the data and the high risk of human error. So among those issues also in that process, we have that difficulty to integrate various submissions because we have several Excel files. And then we have also the high susceptibility to human error that I already mentioned. The data also was fragmented across multiple files because we were having files coming from all the member states, 55 here. And also we all know that Excel does not allow good collaboration. And then the EBR was introduced in 2019 during the first cycle, the second cycle of the BR, to address the challenges I just mentioned. And the idea is to really streamline the BR data reporting and management. So these are the key advantages of the EBR. So it's a web-based platform. So it means that the platform is available at any time. We just, the different stakeholders, namely the member states, the regional economic communities, and the African Union Commission, they won't need to install any software. What is only needed here will be a web browser. And also the EBR will also ensure that we have uniformity of the database So at any time, we can be sure that we have a database that preserves the integrity of the data. We also have the management of the database that is enhanced, and the database also is accessible at 24/7. So the EBR also will allow collaboration between the different stakeholders. As I mentioned, the member state will submit the data using the EBR. The regional economic communities will be able to check the data, to provide feedback through the EBR, and at some point at the end of the process, the AUC can be able also to review the data and to provide feedback to the member state. Now, in terms of component, the EBR has 3 components. So the first one is the one that is responsible of, the data reporting at parameter level for the countries. So the Excel file that I mentioned before is now replaced with a web-based application where member states can connect and do the data entry for the different parameters of the binary review. So here also we have various access level and the type of action that any stakeholders, like every stakeholders can do, depend on his right in the system. And the second component is the one that allows the computation of the score. So this one is based on the technical guideline that has been designed by the experts of the 7 Malabo commitment. So the EBR is automating that process of calculating those scores for the team, for the performance category, and for the different indicator of the binary review. The last component is the one that allows to generate the scorecard and the country profile, and this one is also automated. For instance, as you can see, we can see 5 areas of improvement, and we have also 5 areas of good performance from the country. So this has been generated by the EBR through the algorithm that have been written in the back office. So this is also automated by the EBR. And the scorecard and the country profile are also available in the 5 AU languages. Here the EBR will automate also that process. And now in terms of improving the data quality, we have the restriction. So to enhance the data that has been to enhance the quality of the data that has been submitted, the EBR system has restrictions that have been implemented on certain parameters. So the way it is working here, we have the technical leaders of each team that will provide the restriction on the different parameters, and the EBR will implement those restrictions. So this is an important part of improving the data quality, the data that we get at the end of the process. And the submission also of the data that deviates here from the expected values are flagged. So the EBR will ensure here that values that deviate from the expected values will be flagged and not saved in the database. So we will end up with a database at the end of the process that has less anomalies, and yes. And also we have the feedback from the countries and the data analysis that can inform the adjustment to this restriction. So in every cycle, we make sure that we also take feedback from the countries, and the analysis that is done can inform how the restriction can be improved for the next cycle. And also the EBR is also ensuring that we have guidelines in the platform so that the restrictions are well understood by the countries when they submit their report. And now in terms of, we have been talking about data management, and data security is a crucial aspect of it. So this is a top priority for the EBR platform, as this is a platform that is collecting, storing data for countries, for member states of African Union. So the confidentiality, the integrity and the availability of the data is crucial here in this process. So this is why we have process, we have many layers of security, including firewalls. We have intrusion detection system to protect the data from unauthorized access. And the last slide, here I will talk about the future development of the EBR. The first one is the integration of disruptive technologies, such as AI for the data validation and analysis. And we also are enhancing with new visualization tools and dashboard for better insight and interpretation. We are currently also working on building the binary review decision support tool. This is to take the use the BR dataset to better help for decision making. Thank you. I will stop here.
Thank you. This is an example of another dimension of data system, making sure that you have data that is reliable, you don't have a lot of errors, that you build that into the data system to safeguard the quality of data, but also control some of the output. The fact that countries themselves don't calculate the scores, but the algorithm embedded in the system, countries just input the data, they have no control over the scores, also guarantees the transparency and reliability of the system. It is now my pleasure to invite Dr. Paul Tangata, Head of Data and Analytics at AGRA, to give a presentation on the role of data and analytics in informing policy decision-making, the experiences from demand-driven evidence-based policy planning and development. Thank you, Paul. Welcome.
Good afternoon. We'll switch gears a little bit. So at AGRA, knowing that the policy environment is difficult, AGRA and the BMGF came up with a small program, a pilot. This was called the Hub for Agriculture Policy Action. The Hub was a simple program, basically looking at how we can support policy making, but using evidence, using data and analytics. So this was supposed to be a quick response. Basically, at some point, we were called the policy fireman, because it wasn't that you have a work plan. Governments don't always have work plans when they have already budgeted their activities. So there are sometimes within that budgeted time, they have issues, policy issues that have to be addressed. So at AGRA, we realized that we needed to do something, try to support that. So the upper part was basically to look at how we respond quickly to government requests. But to do that, we had to develop sort of clear criteria on how we are going to support, because it wasn't just any policy issue. We had to look at specific issues. For example, number one, the government itself had to express interest, and this interest had to be in writing. You know, as researchers, sometimes we tend to go to countries, say, we want to support you on A, B, C, D. This was different. The government had to request in writing, and it wasn't any government official. It has to be the Minister of Agriculture at the highest level, because that's where our policies are driven. Once the minister has sent a letter to AGRA, then we were able to respond, but it had to be clearly on an identified policy issue, okay? But it has also to be quick, something that we can respond within 3 months. We didn't want to do something that takes a year. You wanted a quick response team, and there should be a potential to trigger other policies. You know, policies are intertwined. You do one thing today, tomorrow it affects something else. So we had to make sure that if we support an action, a policy asked today, what will come up later that we can also support government. Another element was to look at ourselves. Do we have the capacity? Can we do it? Or do we have other partners who can do it better? For example, you can look at academia, they've got more skills, or if free, they've got better skills. So we had to look at that. If it's something that we can do on ourselves, then we're ready to go in. But if something that we think other institutions have the capacity and can do it better, more than 3 months, then we'll go and work with our partners. Critically, we needed to look at availability of data. The data had to be from the country. We're not interested in bringing data from outside or just modeling. As economists, we can model anything. But we realized for government to take us seriously, we needed to get data from the country. And very interestingly, the countries have data. It's only that they are all over, different ministries. But when you have the time to look for the data, you get it. So, my presentation is quick. What are the lessons? Working with the government has been very interesting. We found that trust is the most critical thing when it comes to data. Once the government trusts you, that what you are doing is basically to support the government. They were able actually to show you where the data is. Our job was even just to ask for the minister to tell us more letters. Okay, can you give us another support letter to the Minister of Trade? For example, we started on looking at the VAT on palm oil and sunflower oil in Tanzania. We were supported by the government at the ministerial level. All our meetings, all our things were happening at the highest levels. And we were able to bring all the technical people into our meetings. Timeliness. You need to respond quickly. What we have learned is sometimes the minister wants the response because the minister wants to convince the Treasury that I want to remove VAT on this aspect. So we cannot wait. We have to go and run and support. Implementation. Implementation is very critical, and as I've already highlighted, it has to be at the highest level. Once you have the buy-in from the minister, everything else works. And interesting enough, we were able to work in some countries where governments would change, or the minister would change in the process. But still the work continued because there were technical people who were able to support and they could see the importance of it. But critically, it was because there was a letter that was written by the minister requesting us to support them. So every time there's a change in minister, we'd go back to, okay, this was the letter. Are you ready to support this agenda? And in most cases it was yes. Or they tweak it a little bit. So, because the program is demand-driven, basically the government decides what needs to be supported, when. We found out that it was also a bit of a problem, not a major problem, but we needed to do some sort of supply. Why? Because sometimes governments might ask something differently, but we fail to interpret it. So some sort of time is like, okay, can we discuss this in this way? And then you find that actually what they were requesting might have been different, but once you discuss, agree, you find that it's just one thing. So that's very important. The demand need for the government has to be supported with a bit of supply driven, a little bit, not too much. Training, very critical. The program did not put in an element of training. But what we found that working with the technical people, they were interested in the training. They wanted to know exactly what we are doing, how we are doing it. And this is very critical.
Here, we have 90 minutes to talk about the importance of agricultural data and market information, how essential it is that this be shareable, reliable, and timely as critical inputs for effective agricultural policies, market operations, food security, and ultimately sustainable food systems. Welcome to the session co-organized by the United States Development Agency, USDA, AGRA, the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, and Academia 2063. I was just saying in the session before coming to this one, how important data is. if you look at the biggest economy in the world, the United States, data are raining down every day. There's data on everything, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, from employments to wages, to agricultural, to export, have you. That economy is much easier to manage than one of the smallest economies in the world, Senegal, which is 3 billion economy compared to, I don't know, is it 30 trillion economy? So you see how much the difference is. Because in Senegal, you don't have the data, or when you have it so much later, and it's partial, it's not comprehensive enough. It doesn't give you the guidance and understanding. One way of looking at the difference between managing the United States economy and the Senegalese economy is just like a patient walking into a clinic. If you have a good lab report, even a young doctor who just started should be able to treat you. But if you walk into a clinic without a lab report, it takes an experienced doctor who will say, oh, I've seen this disease before. I think I understand what it is. So our economies without data are a bigger challenge for us because to manage it, you have to have so much more experience, vast. And a more mature economy with a wealth of data, anybody with some minimum understanding can get something done. So that's why we have to get to the place where our doctors have a laboratory report so they can know what to do with us. And our young and upcoming cadre of experts and analysts and researchers can find the right answers. This is the background of this undertaking for us working with USDA, AGRA, and our colleagues Academia 2063 to hold this side event here. So thank you for all of you who made your time to join us. Now to start with opening the session, I will ask Mr. Jean-Pierre Pierre-Justin Coca, Senior CADEP Advisor, standing in for Director Gottfried Bahigwa of the African Union Commission to give his framing remarks and for us to move on to the other part of the agenda. So thank you, Justin, please. And then once you're done, just please, you can stay here or go back to your seat. Okay.
Thank you, Usman, and thank you all for inviting us, especially Academia 2063, which is a good partner, and of course USDA and AGRA for being here. Apologies from Dr. Godfrey, he couldn't be here because we have also the Africa Climate Summit going on in Nairobi, so we had kind of conflicting schedules, but you got me, that's it. I was hoping that Dr. Karibata would have said a few words so I could have picked him out on what she would have said, but let me just, first of all, stand by existing protocol and make sure that all of you are recognized in this meeting. And I will start by recalling a few facts. One, agriculture is critical to Africa's growth and development. That's a fact. And two, we have more than 60% of sub-Saharan Africa's population that is comprised by smallholder farmers. And that's huge. And about 17% of its GDP comes from agriculture. So these are facts that we all know. So it becomes critical for us to look at what's going on in the world, whether we're talking about climate change that's expected to make agriculture development in Africa even more challenging, and the shocks that we've known in the past few years. We're talking about COVID-19, we're talking about Ukraine, however you want to call it, a war, a conflict, whatever, it still had a big impact on Africa. And climate change, we are the least polluter, but we pay the highest price. So it means that Africa is in a difficult situation where building the resilience of our food systems becomes even more critical and more important than anywhere else in the world. And we have to look at what we need to do to move in this direction and making sure that we enable our farmers to move along the value chain not only looking at whether they're producing enough, whether they don't use enough fertilizers, whether they're using agroecology, whatever they're using, to make sure that they really move along that value chain to produce enough for our people and also to become a breadbasket for the rest of the world. Now, accelerating the implementation of CADEP, the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program for a resilient agricultural food systems is therefore critical to ensuring the transformation of Africa's agriculture. As I said before, Africa's food system have faced numerous challenges in the past few years, and these have led to a lot of things. One is supply chain disruption. The other are the number of conflicts that we see in the continent, and on top of that is climate change that we've seen the impact of, and the combined effect of all being felt, because a lot of countries that have made stride in moving along the food system had kind of some setbacks because of COVID-19. And we have not even documented yet what the impact of the Ukraine war will be, because we are now going through the 4th biennial review, which will end this year, and we hope at least that we will move from just having one country, Rwanda, that achieved the CADEP objective, to more countries achieving that, despite all the shocks that we have seen. Of course, we saw also that in 2021, we still have 20 countries in Africa were on target. And we're hoping that being on target means also achieving what the heads of state agreed upon. For us at the Commission, we look at what the head of state agreed upon. We don't do the implementation, but we ensure that the decision made by the head of states are implemented by the various institutions, by the countries, and by whoever is involved in that. And that's what we do. So it's important for us to see that to assess the resilience of African food systems, the 2021 biennial review reported that COVID-19, although government had some kind of responses to COVID-19, for example, the project that the African Development Bank put in place at that time to respond to COVID, or other institutions like IFAD and others, they still made sure that the impact of that was felt much more than it was supposed to be. So the African Union itself has taken a number of steps to respond to the impact that we have felt, to ensure that.
But really, we put these examples out because they show what we would like to do more of, particularly here on the African continent, to help support Africa food systems transformation. And I'm the first of 3 USDA team speakers, a colleague of mine from the Foreign Agricultural Services here, and a colleague from the private sector whom we work with to get good digital tools out across Africa. So you'll hear from them after me. But first, I guess we'll start with me, right? So we're talking about data, but really, what types of data? Well, agricultural production data, and that includes area planted and yields and area harvested, agricultural market prices for all different kinds of commodities, and agricultural trade data. We know that data is essential, it is fundamental for effective trade and for achieving food security. So in our department, the key data people are National Agricultural Statistics Service. They do surveys throughout the year, over years. They do census every 10 years, agricultural census, and it yields great data which provides information and insights. And so we've been very happy to have our experts from the National Ag Statistics Service of USDA partner with experts right here in Tanzania with the National Bureau of Statistics. And the technical assistance they were providing really focused on survey questionnaire development and other aspects of data collection and the design for collecting data. Our unit, my particular part of USDA, all the things you're going to see from me are projects that we have done here in Tanzania and in other countries. And I want to make a shout out to the U.S. Agency for International Development, because we partner with them quite a bit, and they support a lot of the capacity building work that we've been able to do. But we're very happy about the work here in Tanzania. And that technical assistance, working hand in hand, collaboratively with the experts of the Tanzania National Bureau of Statistics, resulted in these 2 annual agriculture sample surveys being produced, looking at crops and livestock in 2015 and in 2017. And that experience, we understand, because they've told us, the National Bureau of Statistics, really helped them in achieving a lot of advancement within their statistical area. What went into that technical assistance? Looking at sample frame designs, questionnaire design testing, converting GIS files, and a number of other aspects important for improving data collection and analysis. And with that knowledge and their own skills and abilities that they have been developing for so long, together they were able to produce this national sample census of agriculture. It was done in 2019, released in 2021. And again, we think it's a great success because it was this partnership and the other 2 surveys that then helped NBS in producing this, which they did this on their own. We weren't involved with them. COVID hit, so we wanted to have people working with them, but it wasn't possible. But they did this, and we were real happy about that. Now, looking across the other side of the world in the Americas, we have been working with different countries, and there was mentioned the importance of good digital tools. And I want to highlight a couple of examples here. With the country of Panama, we were working with them to help them in their data collection using a free mobile phone app. And in the training from the Ministry of Agriculture, they were able to take that information and then use this on their own. They've put in thousands of data points to help assess their rice production based on the training that they had with us, they're partnering. Also in Latin America, this is in Honduras, we have been working with the Ministry of Agriculture there in assisting in drone training, using drones as a way to look at crop condition. As you see in these slides, the slide here, you've got the drone flying, and then the gentleman at the desk there, he's looking at the remotely sensed imagery achieved by the drones flying over. So we're looking at different kinds of tools that can be useful at the governmental level and also down to the individual farmer level here you see as well. Now, aside from the data people, we also have our market information folks. In USDA, that's the Agricultural Marketing Service. And one of the great things that they're able to do is they publish this great information, market prices on all different kinds of commodities. This is just a view of the fruits and vegetables commodities that they produce data on. But for farmers to really get a fair price, they need to know what is the product really selling for. And that's why this type of collection, this data and information sharing is so important. So we've been working with an intergovernmental organization, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, as it suggests, is an organization of all the countries of the Americas. And headquartered at the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture is the Market Information Organization of the Americas. We work very closely with them to help strengthen their capabilities as working as an organization to really get market information available and shared throughout all of the different countries. And one of the things we've been doing is partnering with the different countries to develop better techniques for market price reporting. So important, again, because this is the information which collected properly can be shared and really empower farmers to know what's the best price they can get for their products. So some scenes here, we have folks doing the training. They go to the different markets, big terminal markets in the country, and then on the other photos there, you see the training of the market reporters actually analyzing the data they have collected. It sounds like it's simple just to collect the prices, but there's really a lot to it because we're not only collecting prices, we're looking at the volume. You may have a certain price, but maybe a small volume was sold at that as opposed to a larger volume. And one of the things we've done with them is help them to develop this catalog of all the different kinds of products here, produce. And you see, they want to do this to really support intra-regional trade. So this focused on Central America, and you see in this example here with sweet pepper, lots of different names for sweet pepper, country by country. So having this catalog has made it easier for the countries in Central America to have common trading in these products, and we're looking to work with other regions of the Americas as well. For my last slide here, this is something that we've just had just last month. This is a USDA data team, and actually this was in Ghana just last month. The gentleman in the white pants and the two gentlemen in the plaid shirts, those are agricultural officials they were visiting with in Ghana. Everybody else is part of our USDA data team. We have national ag statistics people, people from my staff, and the lady in the blue is Pauline Simmons, who was really instrumental in bringing us together with Academia 2063 and with AGRA today. So last thing is that we really do want to partner more. We want to work with countries, we want to work with intergovernmental organizations, and you'll hear more about work at the individual level, by the way, with Andrew Mack, and also hear from my colleague Lisa Colson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the good job.
Thank you, sir.
And all these efforts. Greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Gonzalez. Yeah, I think he's picking up some of his stuff. There you go. All right. Oh, sorry about that. That's okay. That's part of coming up. Yeah, thank you. So this is now my pleasure to welcome Ms. Lisa Carlson, GIS and imagery specialist. We've seen some of your work, I guess, at USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I called it Development Agency before, Foreign Ag Services. So it's our pleasure to welcome you to give a presentation on building agricultural data capacity with geospatial tools and examples right here from Tanzania of gathers and youth mappers. So welcome, Ms. Carlson. And it's a pleasure having you with us. And then when you're done, please stay on the stage.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I appreciate it. So I'm going to step over here. Excellent. So I'm in a different program area of the Foreign Agricultural Service, and so we're going to get into two specific activities just to give you a little more detail about our partnerships with Otto Gonzalez's group. Next slide. There we go. So we engage in geospatial trainings predominantly with our Global Agricultural and Disaster Assessment System. We also know it as GADIS. We do this for agricultural ministries, affiliated universities, other institutions that do statistics and analysis. In Tanzania, we recently have conducted a couple webinars, one for the Tanzania Meteorological Authority and another one for the Tanzania Horticultural Association. Because these were in 2020, they had to be webinars, but we also do in-person trainings. GADIS has amazing analytical capabilities, and it helps empower Tanzania performing near real-time data and analysis with routinely updated information that's presented in a flexible way, allowing you to make various maps and visualizations and perform the analysis that you're interested in. This is a small set of things that you could do with the application. But I'll provide just two examples. One, with GADIS, you can do comparative yield assessments. So looking at this chart on the right, you can see how in 2019, 2020, the maize crop in the broader Arusha area had a very high yield in contrast to what we've experienced this year in Arusha. And so those time series charts really give you excellent context of what's happening on the ground. In addition, you can look at the spatial data sets, our remote sensing data, and with GADIS do a comparison of droughts using this standardized precipitation index data set. So here we're comparing the severe drought that happened in the East African region in 2012 to a much wetter year in 2020. Again, as I mentioned, the trainings happened in 2020, so this is just an example that came from one of the trainings. So I needed to be incredibly brief about Gaddis, but with over 500 different data layers with near real-time analytics, you have the ability of putting the power of analytics into your hands. And so I highly recommend you take a look at our website. You can find it, Gaddis USDA, pretty easily. And this very briefly highlights our work with geospatial data and satellite imagery. We utilize it for decision makers monitoring crop conditions. Next, I want to talk about our crop mapping project with youth mappers that we did earlier this year. And we did this in part because it allows us to engage in a small project that supports interpreting satellite imagery accurately to identify different crop types. And doing that requires a data input that we call ground truth data. So with youth mappers, we empowered tech-savvy youth to collect ground truth data on agriculture. In this image here, you can see that about 1,700 fields were identified by 90 youth mappers. Youth Mappers is an international network of university-based chapters that organize and implement mapping activities in response to global and local development needs. So we at the Foreign Agricultural Service partnered with Youth Mappers and USAID's Geo Center, as well as a local partner, Open Map Development Tanzania. And I believe, Johannes, if you're in the room, feel free to raise your hand and say hello to the group. It was great working with you, Johannes. Thank you. Doing this project, we had 4 key goals. We wanted to build the capacity among youth to collect and manage agricultural data, develop a crowd-sourced data sampling technique, and test that to see how well it can work for getting our ground truth data. We wanted to make sure that we weren't just collecting information from youth mappers, but we were giving back to them as well. So we connected professionals with them who are involved in geospatial analysis and agriculture to ensure there's a good exchange and strong collaboration amongst everyone involved. And then our 4th key goal was to leverage that ground truth data in machine learning to use satellite imagery and create a crop identification map. To achieve these goals, we had a training of trainers workshop in the Arusha area back in April. And that included a professional development panel that involved AgroMobile along with other institutions. We had 4 professional development panelists, including Wilbert Madende. I believe Wilbert's here with us as well. Feel free to say hello a second. Yeah, we really appreciated your presentation, and I know your boss will be talking with us next, so we'll learn more about AgroMobile soon. It's great. But why did we engage in this project? We definitely did it for a wide variety of reasons, and just in the interest of time, I'm going to mention 4 of them that are highlighted on this slide. One, we did this to support FAS and the host government in monitoring agricultural conditions and improving area estimates for very specific targeted crops. Second, we did this for the first time with youth mappers. They used their members' skills to strengthen agricultural data. And then third, we wanted to do it to fulfill a serious need in our community, that the agricultural ground truth data is a highly desired asset in remote sensing. And then finally, we wanted to test a crowdsourced approach. There's research underway. We're still involved in this testing to see if that ground truth data was useful and reliable for our satellite imagery analysis. And we're working on publishing an article about this. So if anyone's interested, we'd be happy to share our results once it becomes available. So I know that was incredibly quick. It covers 2 of our projects that we've done in the past few years. And I want to thank Otto for inviting us to participate in these activities with his group, as well as coming here to talk with AGRF. It's been an amazing opportunity already, starting with just this first day. If anyone is interested in learning more about our work, since I highlighted this very briefly, please look for me after this session. I'd be happy to schedule a meeting. I'll be here all week. And it'd be great to talk more about this work. As you can see on this final slide, we have a wide variety of geospatial assets that are publicly available to anyone interested. And so with that, I will pass on the baton. Asante Sana.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Quite interesting.
To do business, traders crossing borders, going to get maize from another country, beans. So when the borders were crossed, we were stuck. Even there was panic. While in the developed country, they were struggling with the basic goods like tissue. As here in Africa, we're struggling on knowing where to get my maize as a staple food or beans. So our Council of Ministers directed the Commerce Secretariat to really develop a regional food balance sheet. And like the last presenter said, we reached out to our partners, AGRA, and the other technical partner, which I have mentioned there, including the Regional Center for Mapping and Resource for Development, the NASA Harvest of University of Maryland, the Bureau of Food and Agriculture Policy, BFAP, and the Tetra Tech to help us implement this regional food balance sheet with the funding support for our all-weather partners, the Rockefeller Foundation, the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, the USAID, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So what are the main objectives of this initiative is to contribute to improved regional food security, nutrition, and economic growth for countries in the Eastern and Southern African region by enhancing availability of real-time data on production, trade, price, stocks, consumption, and related data for the Eastern and African Southern region. We also aim at increasing availability of those data so that the decision maker don't have to wait for an annual report from the statistic of about the agriculture survey to make a decision. So that's one of our aim, and also we aim to establish effective governance structures and partnership that are responsive to maintain buy-in from all the key stakeholders that we are working on to produce timely and accurate data. So who are the key beneficiaries for this initiative? One is the government, the public, as well as the private sector in the region, to be able to access real-time information on critical food balance, prices, market demand. Also, government can leverage on evidence-based to make a decision. If our minister is to approach the treasury, should know, if you give me 10 million to do ABCD in irrigation, I'll be able to increase my production by this much, and I'll be able to trade or to avail food of this quantity. So that's one of the benefits from the government. Also inform policies. Here we are talking about a region of 21 member states. And our main is to increase trade, and the goods that are more traded are agriculture. So how are we going to trade when we don't know who's producing what and when? And we have variant agroclimatic conditions. So having such information will really help to increase and enhance agriculture trade, food security in the region. The private sectors, who are the key player in this trade business, they need to know where to source. They need to know how to engage with the government, especially on policies that affecting trade. And with the information that they can get from the regional food balance sheet on prices, the shortfall also, as well the forecast that different government plan to have, it can help. The development and emergency fund. Why should, for example, the Bill, Melinda and Gates Foundation invest in horticulture? If there's no clear data showing the needs, while they could invest that in health sector or in even energy. So this regional food balance sheet, we hope it can also provide information that can help our development partners. So what is the approach we are using? We started by a minimum viable product because we are a region of 21 member states. We cannot work in all the 21 member states at the same time. So we started with 6 member states just to pilot the model and to see how it works. And then from there, we can expand geographically. We also decided to start with 3 commodities as the start: maize, beans, and rice. These 3 commodities are of major trading importance in this region, and also we had the data that was available to use. As of to date, these are the achievements we have achieved. We have put in place data coordination structure in the 6 member states. We have launched a digital regional food balance, minimum viable product, that I will demonstrate in the next slide. And also it is operational and member states are feeding information. We have been able to establish a steering committee to guide the country as well as the secretariat on how to implement this. We have been able to establish national technical working group from the various stakeholders in member state to contribute to data collection as well analytic at the country level before it is uploaded into the regional food balance sheet. And we are able to do a number of quality data production management, since we are really trying to produce real-time and accurate data. So it's very important that whoever feeds the system is capacitated to do so. This is how the platform looks. You can access it through that link, the regional food balance sheet, the rfbsa.com. Once you log in there, you can get access. This is like the dashboard where you see the different information per country, per commodities, and you can, it's just an easy tool where you just click and follow instruction. You can check information on, for example, on maize production for the 6 member states, or click on each individual country to check the details. You can also the price trend in the past 5 years on the different commodity per country and do comparison. So going forward, as I conclude for the future, this project have generated a lot of interest from member states to the point that government are even committing to cascade the use of the regional food balance at the district, county, and provincial level so that we can get data from the sources. We have established from member state committees that ensure that the data we are putting on the system is accurate. We are also seeking to expand geographically, include more member states, because now we have only 6, and as well as expand in terms of commodity. As I said, we only have 3 commodities, yet we will still trade a lot in wheat, in soybeans, in sorghum, and etc., as well as horticulture produce. So we continue also to build the capacity for the member states to produce quality and reliable data. I thank you, and you are welcome to ask any question.
Thank you very much. We are now at the end of the presentation. Thank you for your patience. Long. Let's take maybe 10 minutes for questions. You can address them to any members of the panel here. I hope we have microphones in the audience, or you just shout a bit louder. Introduce yourself briefly. Please, not long commentaries, because People have been sitting here listening to all this presentation. Please go straight to your question, as brief as possible, and then if you know whom you want to ask the question to, just let them know. Thank you. Floor is open. Yes. So let me take this gentleman and the lady over there, and I come back to you in the middle. Okay. Do you want to use this one?
Yes. My name is Don. I represent the government of Burundi. My question is about data protection. I heard a lot of digital solution able to collect data, analyze it. Who owns the data? And do you support governments and nations to develop their own digital infrastructure to keep the data? And the last question is, how do you make sure, especially for agromobile, that you do not create some type of dependency that can be ruptured by anything for the farmers? Thank you.
Thank you. Who owns the data? Maybe you can say something. I think USDA can say who owns the data, data protection, Kailash Babacar, and do you create dependency? All right. So you want to start with the dependence, maybe?
So the short answer is, yes, sorry.
It's a great question. So the short answer is that the service is free to farmers. So the farmers can use it if they want, but they don't have to. If they want to use it to reach out to the supply chains that they're part of or they want to be part of, that's absolutely fine, right? But because it costs them nothing, the goal is to provide them with visibility. If it creates dependency, think about it like this. If currently there's only one person who's coming to pick up your goods, right? The more different offers you get, actually the more independence you get, not the more dependence you get, right? So think about it a little bit like an on-ramp to the internet or the ability to use a Microsoft suite. It allows other people to find you. It allows you to communicate with them more efficiently. But you don't have to if you don't want to.
And actually, let me also add that not every dependency is bad. You depend on your car to go to work every day. You depend on your mechanics to fix your car to go to work, right? You depend on the gas station to have gas. So is the dependency creating value or not for you? That's really what matters the most. So, and I think embracing these new technologies, just like all of us use our iPhones and use our Samsung, we depend on all of them, but we solve problems doing that. So I think that's a kind of good dependency.
We're dependent on intermediaries.
Exactly. Like one of the old civil rights leaders in the US saying, so good trouble, this is good dependency. So we can live with that. So who owns the data? So Dr. Gonzalez or Liz?
Thank you, Dr. Usman. So for us at USDA as a government department, really the people own the data because it's publicly available data. So we work with governments and we work with intergovernmental organizations to help them collect accurate data and then make it available. So everybody owns it. We don't own it. It's for the people. It's for the public.
It's the base ownership, open, public access for everybody. It's not just make sure that you don't have the issue of ownership because everybody have equal access, but also then create the open for people to add value. Because if the data is openly access, anybody with their know-how, with their background, can use the same data to create something new of value to others, which is quite good, I think.
Yes,
so.
If I could follow you on that, Dr. Usman, that's a very important point that you mentioned. Again, in USDA, we collect all of this data, our National Ag Statistics Service, our Agricultural Marketing Service, our own Foreign Agricultural Service, and then the data are out there. So if an individual or a business wants to take that data and then they can figure out how they can use it, how they can amplify it, how they can analyze it, and provide a service, they can do it, and many do.
And imagine how many bachelor's theses, master's, doctorate theses come from it, and what have you, right? So, which is really great about that. So I think there was a question about privacy and.
Actually, the data is about who keeps the data. It's not about who uses the data.
Okay.
Who keeps the data and the responsibility to store it.
Okay. So let's get an example. Do you want to say something there, or we're going to do the EBR as well? So both of you, who keeps the data?
Very, very briefly to add, so, the U.S. government has the production, supply, and distribution database. So we maintain a centralized database, but we provide all these various reports whenever the database gets updated, and the reports often say where the data came from or what source was most influential in modifying that number. So we have a lot of transparency about where our data comes from, and often it is national governments or our other geospatial tools that inform our decisions. And so, you know, it as Otto says, becomes a public good that's in a centralized database, but we all have access to it.
Thank you. Let's use the example of the electronic binary review of the African Union with all member states working it. Who owns the data? How is it stored?
Yes, thank you for the question. So see if I take the example of the EBR, electronic binary review, the data is for the countries. I mentioned previously that there is collaboration where the member state will submit the data, the RECs, regional economic communities, will review it. But in those cases, even the regional economic communities cannot change the data. It's the country data. So the data, you know, the regional economic communities and the African Union Commission, they will just facilitate the process, but it's country data. So maybe if I can speak a bit about the issue of the regulation, the data protection. So there are relevant, you know, data regulation framework in place. For instance, in the case of the EBR, you know, the EBR complies with those regulations, such as the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, or ISO 27001, just to make sure that the data is accurate, is safe, and the information of, you know, the user is also protected.
Very good, thank you. Let's take the lady there, and then we come to you. Right?
All right.
And then I go to the left. There's a lady here behind, yeah, and then.
Thank you.
Again, so quick.
Very quick, very quick.
Thank you.
All right, my first question. My name is Ethiopia and I'm from Ethiopia. Andrew, my question is, to what extent you have factored in for farmers to get better price for quality produce? Racine, what is the precision level of the prediction? And to all of you, I believe that from governments to individual farmers, they are being bombarded by a number of systems. So what are your thoughts in terms of bringing interoperability among the various systems? Thank you.
What is the last question?
Bringing interoperability, because farmers and governments are bombarded with, you know, proliferation of systems.
Maybe I'll ask Providence to come with that. Maybe you're using production data, market data, and so on. And the balance sheet is not going to be isolated. How do you bring interoperability with other things, like we hear agromobile and others? So that would be, I think, a good question for you. All right, so then first one, how do you link price and quality? And then Racine, how exact your numbers are, right? Quality, okay. So do you want to start, Providence? Then we go to the others. Okay, there's a mic is coming, a mobile mic is coming, yeah.
Thank you again for the questions. What we are doing at the regional food balance sheet, we are getting data from different sources. So meaning that we can build on someone else's work to ingest data into the system. We are getting data from government, mostly the National Statistics Office, the Agriculture Survey. We are getting data from stock exchange, like the grain stock exchange. We are getting market information data from platforms such as Agromobile, and we are building on that. So as at the regional level, we just want to be as informed as much as possible that the information we are putting forward to this decision maker is close to the reality as much as possible. So that's why I'm very much interested in Agromobile. I even already told my colleagues to get the contacts or from the work that the USDA, the geospatial are doing, because it's somehow related, or even from the Africa Agri-Watch. Yeah. There is one or two things I can borrow from them to inform the platform that we are using. It's about collaboration and networking and leveraging on each other's initiative and resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Providence. Okay. So do you want to talk about the precision of your data before we get then to Mark on the agromobile?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Usually that's a question we get from those predictions. And the last assessment we did, we are 94% accurate. Now let me explain how we do that. Comparing our predictions at a pixel level might not be possible at the same level because we don't have the data at the same pixel level to compare with. So we aggregate the data at the administrative level, and then we compare what country have reported and what we predicted. Therefore, now we compute the accuracy. Now, if we look at what we call out-of-the-bag predictions, which is how good your model is fitting, usually that you are like above 98%. But that's not the precision we're looking at when it comes to.
Put it on again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are those two predictions that accuracy that I can mention. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Racine. Do you connect quality with price, Andrew, through agromobile? This question, right? Right. Does your platform allow people to get an incentive for higher quality?
So it's interesting. It's a great question. Can you all hear me? Because
there's a mic here.
Oh, that's
yeah.
I just thought they could probably hear me with that.
Okay.
So the answer is that reasonable people disagree whether an orange is a large, small-sized orange or a small, medium-sized orange, right? And we know that in the past, what's happened is that the only people who do quality are actually intermediaries, many of whom don't provide a lot of value, right? So what we want to try to do is make the people get the people matched up as quickly as they possibly can. Oftentimes, what happens is that people will call each other and discuss it. And you can call through our platform, right? And then you can agree on a price, you can agree on a quantity, this kind of thing. Sometimes what happens is that a company, Guinness could be any company. We can work in any crop, right? In any value chain. So what they'll do is they'll throw out standards that they like people to play, and then they will reward people who meet those standards, and they'll reject goods that don't, right? We're working with the avocado sector here in Tanzania, and a substantial percentage of the avocados that are presented for export don't quite make the grade, right? So that two-way communication is really, really important, but it is ultimately between the buyer and the seller. Our goal is not to get in the way. Our goal is to make sure that they find each other and they sell to each other.
Excellent. So it's not built in, but it's possible. So
just on that price and quality, if I can say very quickly. And the work that USDA that we've done with the Market Information Organization of the Americas, where I show the slides of the different products and their different names and the different countries. One of the key parts of that work is working with them on developing grades and standards. So in USDA, going back to your question or your point about the orange and how big is it and this and that. Well, actually, there are different kinds of grades and standards where the quality of the produce or the whatever it is linked to a particular price. So this way, a farmer knows, if they know what the grades and standards are, they can say, okay, this is a grade, whatever it is, avocado, and this is the price it can command in the market versus something else. So that's why it's so important to have these data available, the transparency, so anybody in the value chain can understand, okay, if this is what it looks like, these are the qualities that it has to have. If it has these qualities, this is the type of price that you might be able to get. This is what the market is providing right now. And again, on the storage of the data, all those data that we have, they're all on publicly available websites.
Very good. On the quality, I guess at some point your metadata may allow you to do some standardization of prices and quality. So Racine is on the same thing?
Yeah, just
On transfer. Okay.
No, please. Just put, yeah.
So on transparency, the word he used, for AGWA, the predictions are made country by country. We don't train the data set for the entire continent to avoid ecological fallacy. It means a data in Tanzania might have an impact on the predictions in Senegal, but they're very, far. And for transparency, when you go to the website, you have also the accuracy assessment country by country to know how the model is accurate for your country, for example.
Okay, very good, thank you. So it looks like the panelists really want to have this discussion going. We are a little bit late, so do you want to ask just one question? Everybody has asked 3 questions. If you do that, we'll spend the night here. And I have two as a gentleman, so 3 days, each one question. So you ask one question, please, right? And we have 3 more questions from each of you, and then that's going to be the end of it for today. Thank you for agreeing to be here for a little bit longer. So, but yes.
Yeah, my question will be really fast. My name is Akira, and I work also developing digital solutions for smallholder farmers in Africa. And I would like to know what was the youth role and how youth were integrated, conceiving, collecting, and analyzing the data in all your projects and all your solutions. Thank you.
I think this is for you, Lisa, right? You talk about a lot of the youth mappers and so on. So, yeah. But let's come back later so that we don't have to spend too much time. So, Lisa, please.
Sure. So, USAID is responsible for youth mappers, and youth mappers is a very community-based open network that, like, they all had to decide if they wanted to be a part of the project, and they had to have a strong role in how the project was designed, and so, yeah, they played a very hands-on role in collecting the data, how we went about collecting the data. I was the advisor, the technical advisor, guiding them through how we do it, but then we just let them loose and let them
very
pursue.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to just briefly, half a second? Half a minute, sorry.
Just quickly, about 65% of all the people on our platform are what we call youth farmers, right? And what's important about that is that they are quick adopters, they are early adopters, they are the people who teach the elders, many of whom have much more land, right? So you have the youth who have, they're phone natives, they enjoy the technology, they get it right away. Their parents, sometimes their grandparents, are the ones who own the production. And so it's a nice match. And we found consistently across the continent, every place we work, it's about 65% are youth farmers.
There you go, very involved, right? So again, let me take the gentleman with the light blue shirt, and then I come to you in the back. So again, quick, one question, and then we take it from there.
Okay, my name is Felix Awino. I work for Otai Company Limited, otherwise known as Mkulima Hub. We're also in the digital space in agriculture. My question will go to AgroMobile in terms of the end-to-end processes where the seller meets the buyer. What are the payment integration systems that you have in place? And that will mean when the end of that particular process, what happens between the buyer, how is that payment process? And if that is so, is it digitized in a way that it helps in traceability of the financial history of this particular seller? That was my question.
Thank you. And
great. And the short answer is we initially launched in Colombia, in South America, as our first implementation. And we integrated with the largest payments platform in that part of the world. And what we found was that there were, even in one small part of Colombia, 25 different ways that farmers like to pay each other. And it wasn't really possible to put them all on the platform. That created friction. And so what we did instead was we said, there are people we can partner with. There are banks, there are the M-Pesas of the world, there are credit unions, there are lots of different ways that people want to pay each other. We will let them do this. Our goal is to make sure that we get the data conversation started. Because when it comes down to it, if 95% of all the farmers are off the data map, right, that means they're not paying each other easily. So let's get them in, and we'll partner with the financial partners to actually consummate the payments.
as a second step, okay, very good, perfect. So as long as they connect, business is going to take place. Okay, very good. So let me take with the red thing, and then your colleague.
Okay, my name is Geoffrey Tenganamba. I'm from Mazao Hub Farm Management System, based in Tanzania, but operating in Zimbabwe as well. My question is about data, on the quality of data for all of you, because I've seen most of organizations, even the government, struggling with the quality of data. And the challenge on the quality of data is because of the sources of data. And most of us, whenever we come up with, we are talking about data here, but are we really investing into this grassroots level, especially smallholder farmers, who are actually also the source of information information goes to the government, and the government produce those data. So
For
how are we
Quality of
implementing?
data. Okay. Let
How
me
are we
ask
implementing
Paul.
on the quality of that?
You are working with government, trying in the hub to provide this kind of data. How do you deal with the quality of data?
Thank you. Quality of data is a problem. And we have seen it like in one country, you find that you go to Ministry of Trade, their data is different from the Ministry of Agriculture. In most of Africa, we are trading on agriculture goods. So even the Ministry of Trade, they are linked to Ministry of Agriculture, but the data is different. So that is something that's why in my presentation I said we need also to do some training, capacity building. It's because of some of the issues of data being a problem. Can I also have the chance to just comment on, we have been asking on who owns the data. The data we are dealing with is different from us at the policy level. There's some data from government that you need that trust for you to get it. When you're talking VAT, because most of our work, the Minister of Agriculture has to go to justify to Minister of Finance, Treasury, to say we need this. So sometimes that data cannot easily be accessible to everybody. You need to have that trust. So it's different data types we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The data quality is going to improve once we work on data before we need the data. Often we just rush because we need data, but we have to, just like we're building the roads before we need them, we have to have the data infrastructure before we need the data. If we don't have that, we're not going to have the kind of quality that we need. So we have the last questions. It's a gentleman there. Sorry. So we're just going to close after that, and then maybe the rest you do it around coffee or dinner. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Idi Mukeshimana. I'm the CEO of Superova Group, a digital transformation company based in China, Beijing. Now is here in Tanzania. So my question is, now we have been talking about data and also the different method of data correction. So what do you think is the effective way to collect the data, especially from young farmers in the village? That's question number one. Question number two.
It's question number one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I don't know, Lisa, you have been trying to do that, to collect data on the ground. And maybe Providence, I can say something about that. What is the most effective way to collect data from farmers on the ground?
Well, personally, I wouldn't necessarily refer to my small project for this. You know, NAS, our domestic agency that collects farmer data, does it with censuses, it does it with surveys, there's area frame sampling, there's a whole methodology behind collecting farmer data, and I would punt the question to follow those formal methodologies.
And I think most ministers of agriculture actually do this routinely on an annual basis, at least to collect production data. Providence, do you have any?
Yes, I think one of the effective way of collecting data is to collect it at the source, and also have a harmonized approach of collecting data. Under the regional food balance sheet, we are training the member states using a harmonized approach tools to collect the data at the source. That means even farm get price. There at the counties, at the district, at the sector, from down there going up. That's what I can add. Thank you
very much. So again, please join me to give a round of applause to our panelists. And to yourself as well for sticking around here. Thank you. So can I ask you to come together for a group photo, I think, for the communications team?